Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Senate. It's a great day in the state of Georgia. It is time, the time has arrived to convene. All unauthorized personnel, please exit the chamber. I recognize the distinguished senator from the 28th.
Good morning, Mr. President. We have a full lineup of pages today, so I'm going to run through them real quick. We appreciate their service to this state and helping us do our business today. So today we've got Isabella Chaka, James McGovern, Jordan Askew, Emery Bryant, Sena Hicks, Chase Jenkins, Morgan Jones, Alexia Little, Brianna Melson, Tashana Dunlap, Akila Hightower, Zandon Riley, Dexter Silas, and Holland Caruth. So to all our pages, we say thank you for your service today and getting us those messages. Today is Ballet Day, Harry Potter Book Night Day, Rose Day, National Periodic Table Day, Send a Card to a Friend Day. And we've also got several groups up here, but I know we've got the Girl Scouts here. We've got CRNA students from Emory and Augusta University. We've got the Georgia Utility Contractors here today and the Citizens Impact, and there are several other groups running around the Capitol. Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
Thank you, Senator. And I believe the pages are now just making their way in where you just introduced them, Senator. Let's give the pages a round of a big hand appreciation here. The good senator from the 12th has a number of students from Second Baptist Church, Mount Zion Second Baptist Church. Is that correct, Senator? From Albany, Georgia. So we're glad to have them as well. But thank you, Senator from the 28th. I appreciate that. Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the journal? Chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none. The journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk. First reading references the Senate bills and resolutions. Secretary.
Senate Bill 94 by Senators Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to authorize the use of automated plate recognition systems.
Public safety.
Senate Bill 95 by Senators Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to state grants authorized relative to general provisions of solid waste management so as to specify the manner.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 96 by Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to the Professional Standards Commission's authority to create and implement standards and procedures for certifying
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 97 by Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to emergency management so as to create the Georgia Cyber Command Division under the Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency to provide
Veterans and Homeland Security.
Senate Bill 98 by Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to local boards of education so as to prohibit local board of education members from discussing
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 99 by Senators Dolezal of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to exemptions from Certificate of Need requirements so as to provide an exemption
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 100 by Senators Hatchett of the 50th and others, a bill relating to unsecured judicial release requirement and effect of failure.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 101 by Senator Halpern of the 39th and others, a bill relating to elections and primaries generally so as to provide that an application for an absentee ballot in a primary. Senate Bill 102 by Senators Walker III of the 20th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to nurses so as to provide a provision relating to the administration.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 103 by Senator Goodman of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to disposition of unclaimed property so as to provide for the handling. Senate Resolution 94 by Senators Hickman of the 4th and others, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. E. Raybon Anderson and dedicating a road in his memory and for other purposes.
Transportation.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading references House bills.
House Bill 94 by Representative Campbell of the 171st, a bill to be entitled an act to provide for the creation of the Office of County Administrator of Mitchell County. House Bill 117 by Representative Scogans of the 14th and Gamble of the 15th, a bill to be entitled an act providing for the Board of Education of Bartow County.
Slogan.
House Bill 118 by Representative Scogans of the 14th and Gamble of the 15th, a bill to be entitled an act to provide a homestead exemption from
State
certain.
and local property.
House Bill 125 by Representative Smith of the 138th and Smith of the 139th, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the assessment and collection of a technology fee by the
State
probate
and local
court.
government.
House Bill 159 by Representative Meeks of the 178th and DeLocke of the 167, a bill to be entitled
State
an
and
act.
local government.
House Bill 164 by Representative Smith of the 18th, a bill to be entitled an act to provide a new charter for the city of Mount Zion, approved May 12, 2015.
State and local government.
House Bill 169 by Representative Collins of the 71st and others, a bill to be entitled an act providing for the compensation and expenses of the chairperson and members of the Board of Education of Carroll County, approved March 25, 1986, so as to change the provisions relating to compensation of the members of the board and to provide an effective date.
State and local government.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 39 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman of the 8th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Government Oversight has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 3 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 23 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th District, Chairman. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 47 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District, Chairman. The Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 44 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 60 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District, Chairman. Mr. President, that completes the order.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, you all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 44th and the 5th.
Without objection, senators from the 44th and the 5th are excused. The senator from the 55th wish to rise? Wave it off. Is there any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll of senators. Please signify your presence by voting the yay switch. Secretary, unlock the machine. It is now time for the morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversation. I would ask that the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. And I want to call on my good friend from Perry, Georgia, the good senator from the 20th, to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and introduce our chaplain of the day. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me as we pledge the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. Well, it is my real pleasure today to have our pastor of the day. He is my pastor, Reverend Tom Caruth. He's a native of Dublin, Georgia. Currently serves as the senior pastor at Perry United Methodist Church in my beautiful hometown of Perry. Prior to coming to Perry, Tom served churches in Bloomingdale, Byron, and Byron. He earned his bachelor's degree at Duke University and later earned his Master's of Divinity from Candler School of Theology at Emory University. Tom has been married to his lovely wife, Shelley, for 16 years, and they have 4 incredible children. His daughter, Holland, is in 8th grade at Westville School, and she's serving as a Senate page today. And Holland is in here to see her father. Stand up, Holland. We appreciate her service today. When Pastor Tom is not busy with his family and his church, he enjoys playing in the legendary local rock band with my 2 brothers and others, and the name of the band is Two Beer Bob and the Low T Jamboree. Y'all are in for a treat. Reverend Tom Carew.
Good morning. It's a real honor to be here with you today, and pray for me because I am Larry's pastor. And so, it is a real honor to get to serve the fine church at Perry United Methodist Church. Y'all know, I think many of you know the story of Jesus in the Bible and how he rose from the dead and he appeared to the disciples. Remember how Peter denied him? And then he was on the beach and Jesus met Peter. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Feed my sheep. I'm going to read the verses right after that. Right after that. John chapter 21, beginning in verse 18. Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and to go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who reclined next to Jesus at the supper and had said, "Lord, who is it that is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus said to him, "If it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? Follow me." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Peter and John had a little bit of a rivalry. They were both kind of the best. You know what I'm saying? Jockeying for position. I heard the distinguished pastor who spoke here yesterday online talking about, is your towel dirty? Is your towel dirty? Well, Peter managed to deny Jesus that same day. And then a few days later, Jesus is welcoming him back and saying, man, I got something for you to do. Do you love me? I know you blew it. Do you love me? Feed my sheep. Would you take care of my sheep? And then he says, when you're young, you went where you wanted. When you grow old, you're going to go places you don't want to go. I've noticed some of y'all have to go places you don't want to go. I've seen that already today. They say, we need you over here. We need you over here. You ever feel like you have to go places you don't want to go? You're being led along? That Jesus is saying that as we grow in our call, we have to learn to go where he wants us to go. But Peter looks over his shoulder at somebody else and says, what about him? Do y'all do that? I do that. Have you arrived yet? I keep waiting to get to the place where I've arrived. But it's so easy, isn't it, to look over in there and say, man, how come he got that? I wanted that assignment. I wanted that committee. Why is that caucus? Why? And I just want to remind all of you today, and myself, you have a calling. And we need you to be you. I'm going to close with this quote. I love this. There was this Hasidic rabbi, I think you pronounce it Zusha of Hanipol. Great Hasidic rabbi. And he said this, in the coming world, they will not ask me, why were you not Moses? They will ask me, why were you not Zusha? Friends, we are here, aren't we? Every one of you, members of the Senate, Girl Scouts, nurses, Albany students. We're here for a purpose. God doesn't need us to be somebody else. He needs you to be you. There is no one that can be you but you. I think Dr. Seuss said that's truer than true. Let's pray. God, thank you that even when we blow it, even when we fall a little bit short or even a lot of bit short, you are a God who says, nah, do you love me? Come on, I got something for you to do. God, thanks that we get to be here today in this beautiful, historic place. And we get to do important things to help others. Lord, you've put us here for a reason. And Lord, help us not to look over our shoulder and try to be somebody else. Don't help us, Lord, give us the grace not to worry about their calling. Help us just to follow our own calling. You've called us here, and we are grateful. We thank you, O Lord. And all God's children said, amen.
Senator from the 33rd, what purpose you rise?
President, I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 38th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 38th is excused. It is my pleasure today, if I can grab everybody's attention real quick, we always have very special guests, not just our chaplains of the day, but always our doctors of the day as well. We appreciate all the men and women who are in the medical profession who come down here and donate their time. And I'd like to call on the senator from the 45th to introduce the doctor of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's truly an honor to get to introduce the doctor of the day, Dr. Jay Smith. He was born in Atlanta, raised in Beaufort. Dr. Smith received his undergraduate degree from Georgia Tech and his medical degree from the Medical College of Georgia. He then completed his residency at Harvard and returned to Georgia to practice and raise his family. He worked as an emergency physician and the medical director at Northside Hospital, Gwinnett campus. He is currently president of the Georgia College of Emergency Physicians and Council on Legislation. He's the chair of that committee for the Medical Association of Georgia. He and his wife, Courtney, are raising their 5 children in Beaufort. It's my true honor to introduce Dr. Jay Smith.
Thank you. I've had the honor of coming down here for over a decade, and I've gotten to know some of you on a personal level. And I want to thank you because I've realized that y'all sacrifice a lot of time from your family and from your income, from your careers to come down here and make the state better. So thank you for that sacrifice. And I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm an emergency physician, as he said, and today may be the only chance to see an ER doctor without a 4-hour wait. So we'll be down there if you need us. Thank you.
You ready? We're going with. We have several guests today, very special guests, and a few of them are. We've got some artists, and we got athletes, and all kinds of people here today. But I'm happy to have one of our own homegrown Stockbridge, Georgia kids that now has made it big with the Atlanta Braves. It's great to have Michael Harris here today. And Secretary, will you read the caption?
Senate Resolution 78 by Senator Jones of the 10th, Strickland of the 17th, Butler of the 55th, and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Michael Harris II and for other purposes. Whereas, drafted by the Atlanta Braves in the 3rd round of the 2019 Major League Baseball MLB draft, Michael Harris II is a professional baseball outfielder who made his MLB debut in 2022 and earned the 2022 National League Rookie of the Year award. And whereas this outstanding player epitomizes the courage, determination, leadership, and character necessary to attain excellence in athletic prowess and in performance. And whereas his superior skill, strategy, stamina, and control has earned him the respect and admiration of his teammates. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that the superlative abilities of this accomplished and gifted athlete be appropriately honored. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Michael Harris II for his distinguished and growing career in baseball, as well as extend best wishes for continued success both on and off the field. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'm joined today by our Henry County delegation, centered from the 17th and the 25th, but the special guest, the person who's responsible for getting Michael here today, is our distinguished senator from the 10th, and I'd like to call upon him to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of this great body. It is indeed my honor to present to you a young man who's really at the beginning of his career, who already has so many accomplishments under his belt. You see, I shared with Michael this morning that it was my responsibility to tell his story. Not just tell his story of his athletic achievements, but also to tell the story of the man. What I found in him was someone who was extremely unassuming, someone that was passionate and very caring about, first, his family, of which he's joined up here on the stage with his parents, Miss Latasha Harris, and his father, Michael Harris Sr. He also has his agent present, who we kept him off to the side. But to share just a few tidbits about Michael as we welcome the Girl Scouts here today, his mother told me that he grew up as a kid and he kind of befriended everyone, especially those that were seen as being different. Michael was used to doing community service with his parents through many organizations. And may I add that Michael was born in DeKalb County. And one of those organizations, I understand, was the Gresham Park Rattlers, where he started his illustrious baseball career. Michael is very proud and supportive of his only sister, who is a sophomore at Miles College, majoring in biology. He began playing sports, and I mean multiple sports, baseball, basketball, soccer, and even track and field at a very early age. But we're all delighted that he chose baseball as his career. He's known affectionately as Money Mike, and I asked him where did he get that name from, and he said when he was a child playing, he was kind of a quiet, unassuming player. And he said he would often let his exploits on the field speak for him. And after numerous clutch performances as a pitcher, as a hitter, and one of his youth coaches described him as money, for always delivering and always being on time. And that name, Money Mike, was born. Michael has a passion for pets, and I tried to coax out of him what kind of pets, but he said, had I gone to college, I would have majored in veterinarian medicine. And unbeknownst to him, he was certainly and has certainly been blessed to be a Major League Baseball player with the Atlanta Braves. And while off the field, Michael's caring and giving heart formed his Catch 23 Foundation to continue caring for others. This speaks to the heart of the man. Of course, when he was called up by the Braves in 2022, his first year, he won the National League Rookie of the Year. And may I add, he should have been Major League Baseball's Rookie of the Year. So I'm delighted to be joined by my other colleagues from Henry County, because I told Michael that we wanted to just simply love on him today. So I'm going to ask if my other colleagues from Henry County, my good friend, Senator Brian Strickland, and also Senator Rick Williams, if they would say a few words, and then we will introduce to you Michael Harris.
Thank you, Senator. I'll be brief. My colleague did a great job talking about the man that's Michael Harris. We all got to witness the baseball player Michael Harris this last year, and he talked a lot about the person, the character that he has. I just want to say this. The pastor this morning mentioned about us all getting pulled different places that you have to go. And you got to think, we think we're busy,
Imagine winning Rookie of the Year and all the places you have to go. What I've seen these last few months is Michael Harris has been back in his hometown. We've seen him at city council meetings being recognized, city of Stockbridge in particular. We've seen him at the Henry County Board of Commissioners getting recognized by the Board of Commissioners. And that's not something you probably could say about every athlete. He's much bigger than Henry County, much bigger than Stockbridge, much bigger than Georgia. But it says a lot about the person that he is. And I just want to say thank you for being such a great ambassador for the community that you grew up in. Senator.
It is certainly an honor to be here also, and to see a young man develop his talent like this young man has, and he sets an example for a lot of young people all over the state, all over the United States. All I can do is tell him thank you for your dedication and your example of hard work. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you. It's yours.
Hello. I'm not good with this, so yeah, this means a lot to be here and get such an honor that a lot of people don't get to have in their life. So on behalf of myself and the Catch-23 Foundation, I just want to thank the entire legislative body and everybody had a part in this. So basically that's it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Just thank you to everybody in here, and it means a lot. And I wanted to give out two, I guess you can call prizes. I signed the ball for Lieutenant Governor and Senator Jones. So.
We have some other special guests, have several groups here today, but I am happy to have my good friend Steve Penley here today, who if you're not familiar with his artwork, you actually are familiar with his artwork because it's spread out all over the Capitol here, and you might not know who authored it, but this is the gentleman here, and I'm excited about having him down here today, and I'm excited that the senator from the 28th could get him down here, and if Secretary will read the caption, we'll recognize that.
Senate Resolution 44 by Senators Brass of the 28th, Kennedy of the 18th, Gooch of the 51st, and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Steve Penley and for other purposes. Whereas, born into a family of musicians in 1964 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and whereas he is now one of America's most celebrated artists whose work is exhibited worldwide. And whereas Steve has received numerous awards and honors for his exemplary art, and his donated paintings have enriched and benefited countless charities and organizations across his community, this state, and this nation. And whereas throughout his career he has demonstrated a sincere passion for American imagery and iconography, including the Statue of Liberty and the American flag. And his work is representative of an individual who deeply appreciates the rich history of this great nation. And whereas he is a person of magnanimous strengths with an unimpeachable reputation for integrity, intelligence, fairness, and kindness. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that the outstanding accomplishments of this remarkable and distinguished Georgian be appropriately recognized. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Steve Penley for his distinguished career in art and extend the most sincere best wishes for future health and happiness. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I would like to call the senator from the 28th to introduce our special guest. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to welcome the senator from the 30th as well up here. He represents Stephen Lyle Penley, Steve was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee on December 27th, 19... his family soon relocated to Athens and later to Macon, where he graduated high school. He was born into a family of musicians. He worked at his father's piano shop until his college years. He then enrolled at University of Georgia and then transferred to School of Visual Arts in New York City to pursue a career as a painter. Penley moved to Atlanta and continued to paint while he worked on odd jobs throughout. And in 1992, Robert Steed, an Atlanta attorney and art enthusiast, noticed Penley's artwork in a Midtown Atlanta restaurant, and they quickly became friends, and Steed's patronage enabled Penley to break into the Atlanta art scene. He's best known for his portraits of iconic Americans such as U.S. President Teddy Roosevelt, civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., and painter Georgia O'Keeffe. Many of his subjects are former presidents such as George Washington, and George Washington painting is really how I came to know Steve. Many of y'all know I worked for Congressman Lynn Westmoreland, and displayed in his office in D.C. was this large painting of our first president, and just a beautiful painting, and Steve's paintings are just fantastic. And one measure of his success is the prestige and number of his collectors, such as Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, Federal Reserve Board, Southwest Airlines, Mercer University, Georgia Museum of Art. And in addition to painting, Steve has written and illustrated 2 books, The Reconstruction of America and Ronald Reagan and the American Ideal. And it's in that book that he stated that the goal of his book and the goal of his paintings is to reconstruct the American heroic image which has been deconstructed in the postmodernist era. So of all his accomplishments, Steve will tell you his proudest role is as a father of 3 very talented artists and musicians, Lyle, Abby, and Parker. So with that, I give you a great artist, Steve Penley.
Thank you. Well, I love all you guys because I've made a lot of money off all you senators, and I'm not one of the few people you'll ever meet. I love lobbyists and politicians, and it catches people off guard. But no, I think like y'all do, unfortunately. So no, I'm just kidding. It's great. I see a lot of friends here, and it's good to see you guys. And thank you so much for. Wait, where'd you go? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for this is a real honor for me, and if y'all knew me very well, you would never let me. And I just wanted to make sure I said something up here so I could tell people I was actually speaking to the Senate and not be lying. But it's a huge honor, and I appreciate all you guys having me and letting me get away with this. So, but I tried to scare them and said, "You want my speech to be an hour or 2 hours?" And so I think everybody be running for the hills. I was going to say it all started at a log cabin back in 1985. All right. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Senator from the 28th is a busy man today. So he has our next special guest here with us. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 98 by Senators Brass of the 28th, Robertson of the 29th, Watson of the 1st, and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Georgia's certified registered nurse anesthetist and for other purposes. Whereas as early as 1916, certified registered nurse anesthetists were providing anesthesia at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. And whereas in 1938, 17 CRNAs established the Georgia Association of Nurse Anesthetists, which has grown to represent over 1,500 members and is among the oldest and largest CRNA state organization in the United States. And whereas CRNAs in Georgia are committed to caring for Georgia citizens by providing vigilant, high-quality, cost-effective anesthesia services. And whereas CRNAs are anesthesia professionals who safely administer more than 50 million anesthetics to patients each year in the United States, and as an advanced practice registered nurses, CRNAs are among the nation's most trusted professions. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that these outstanding medical professionals be appropriately honored. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Georgia's certified registered nurse anesthetists for their dedication to health and well-being of the citizens of this state and extend best wishes for continued success. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Thank you. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I know today is probably a really special day for the Senator from the 28th because it's not just CRNA Day, but he has his wife up here, Megan, who is a professional in that field, and she has helped bring about 100 students from Emory University as well as Augusta University here today, and so y'all please pay close attention to the Senator from the 28th here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of y'all don't know, but really CRNAs are why I got involved in politics. It was back in 2010 during the Great Recession. We had many budget cuts going throughout the state and just a real shortfall in the money. And Board of Regents announced that they were going to get rid of a program. And one of those programs was my wife's program, and she was in her final semester at then MCG, which is now Augusta University. And so that taught me a lesson real quick on how politics can affect my life. And so that got us involved and to the point where Megan is now president of the association of the Georgia Association of Nurse Anesthetists. So many of y'all know her, most of you do. You certainly know she's my better half and allows me to come up here and pester you guys, so I will bring her up here and let her pester you instead of me. So with that, Megan Taylor Brass.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here. Like Matt said, I'm Megan Brass. I'm the president of the Georgia Association of Nurse Anesthetists, and it is an absolute honor to be here this morning representing the over 1,600 CRNAs who are out in Georgia, rural and urban areas that are providing excellent anesthesia care to their patients today. Thank you for having us.
All right, good job, good job. You better on Mike and Brass here. It is Firefighter Day here at the Capitol, and it's always great to have our firefighters from all over the state joining us today, and I'm glad our senators have decided to recognize them here. On the floor, Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 92 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Robertson of the 29th, Anna Vitarte of the 31st, and Walker the 3rd of the 20th. A resolution honoring and commending the firefighters of Georgia and recognizing February 7, 2023 as Firefighters Recognition Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas there are over 30,000 firefighters in the state of Georgia from 900 fire departments that risk their lives every day to provide emergency services. And whereas the brave firefighters of Georgia have selflessly committed their lives to protection of life and property, and whereas because of the sacrifice these outstanding individuals make each day, the citizens of Georgia are able to retain a deep sense of security. And whereas the firefighters of Georgia continue to set an incredibly high standard for firefighting and public service, and whereas their commitment to the safety of their fellow citizens is evidenced in their exemplary conduct and determination. And whereas it is most fitting and proper that Georgia's firefighters be recognized for their effective and dedicated service to the people of the state of Georgia. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body honor and commend each and every firefighter for their outstanding service to the people of this state and for going above and beyond the call of duty for their fellow citizens, and recognize February 7, 2023 as Firefighter Recognition Day at the state capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I now call our friend, the Chair of Public Safety, Senator from the 56th, to speak to the resolution. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to be here today. We have missed the opportunity to recognize in the front of our Senate the firefighters of this state due to COVID the last few years. It's my honor to stand with my brothers and my sisters in the fire service. Each and every one of your districts, in every corner of your community, there's a fire station. And it is manned by men and women serving as either volunteers, part-time, or full-time firefighters. In your greatest time of need, they respond. When most of us are enjoying a Thanksgiving meal with our family, they go out and respond. When you're thinking about a Christmas morning, they're out responding to make sure somebody is safe and secure. As this industry has continued to change with medical calls and a staffing shortage like in many others, we need our firefighters now more than ever. So I'm going to ask you to do one thing today. When you see one of these men and women in our Capitol today, or when you go back home, stop and simply say, thank you. There's a reason why they were coined the bravest so many years ago. I'm honored to stand with them today. Next, we'll hear briefly from the Senator from the 17th to recognize some additional firefighters we have here, as well as from our Firefighters and Fire Chiefs Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to get to come up here today again. I have 6 folks down front here. They're all firefighters from the city of Fayetteville. You know, but as Senator Albers, as the chairman was saying, it takes something special, something different about you, something inside of you to be a firefighter, to be a first responder, especially now. These gentlemen just finished a 24-hour shift, I believe at 7:30 this morning. Here they are in front of you all today. So when you're tired, think about what they go through every single week in their jobs, protecting us, and then going back home to their families. Honored to get to have them with us today in a moment of personal privilege as well. The third gentleman to my right, raise your hand, Charlie, is Charlie Perdue, my brother-in-law, Lindsay's brother. And in addition to being a full-time firefighter with the city of Fayetteville, he's also a volunteer firefighter for Meriwether County where he lives. And so when he's not doing this job, he's back home keeping folks in his hometown safe as well. So thank you so much for giving me a second to say a few words, and it's an honor to have all you guys up here with us today.
Good morning. My name is David Edens. I'm the current president of the Georgia Association of Fire Chiefs. I hail from the great city of Waycross, Georgia, in Ware County. I'm pleased to be able to represent the Georgia Association of Fire Chiefs and stand here on behalf also of the Georgia State Firefighters Association with my co-partner and president, Gary Clark. I want to thank you for this honor and privilege of recognizing the fire service, not only today, but as you have done throughout the years. It means a lot to us throughout the state that the elected officials that are sent here to take care of the state's business does not forget not only the fire service, but public safety as a whole. Because we are all one family, we all work together, even though we're representing the fire department here today. I want to say that this is the greatest honor of me being here today from Waycross, but you got trumped by 2 little children standing out in the hallway today that wanted to take a picture with 2 firemen. That it never gets old, being children's heroes. After 36 years, every day, I cherish that more and more. Thank you very much.
And we say the best for last. It is a pleasure. It's an honor to have so many young scouts here today, and I appreciate the senator from the 42nd and honoring our young ladies who do such a great job with everything they do and all their public service that they do. Secretary, read the caption, please.
Senate Resolution 99 by Senators Parent of the 42nd, Butler of the 55th, and Orrock of the 36th, and others. A resolution recognizing February 7, 2023 as Girl Scout Day at the state capitol and commending the Girl Scouts as a national leader and providing the best leadership development experience in the world to American girls and for other purposes. Whereas more than a century ago, native of Savannah Juliette Gordon Lowe started the movement known as Girl Scouts. And whereas the life mission of Juliette Gordon Lowe was to build girls of courage, confidence, and character. And whereas the Girl Scout leadership experience encourages girls to develop a strong sense of self, connect to their communities both locally and globally, and feel empowered to make a difference in the world. And whereas the Girl Scout Gold Award, the highest honor a Girl Scout can earn, acknowledges each recipient's power and dedication to not only bettering herself, but also to making the world a better place for others. And whereas more than 59 million American women are Girl Scout alumnae, and 2.6 million girls and adult volunteers are active members. And whereas the movement started by Juliette Gordon Lowe now reaches every corner of the world, with Girl Scouts living throughout the United States, its territories, and more than 90 countries across the globe. And whereas this tradition of leadership continues today in our state, as all of Georgia's women legislators are members of Honorary Girl Scout Troop 2012. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize February 7th, 2023 as Girl Scout Day at the state capitol and commend the Girl Scouts as a national leader in developing girls of courage, confidence, and character. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Thank you. And it is an honor to have these young ladies down here again this year. I don't think a time has passed since I've been here, and it's been 10 years that the senator from the 42nd has not recognized the Girl Scouts, not just in her district, but around the state, and we appreciate her doing that year in and year out. She has a strong appreciation for the Girl Scouts, and I'd be willing to bet it's probably because you used to be one.
Yes,
right?
me
Yeah,
too.
probably so. She used to be one. So Senator from Conyers also is here today. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce the senator from the 42nd to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it is my honor as a former Girl Scout, as the Lieutenant Governor said, and for many other of our women legislators who are also Girl Scouts, to welcome the Girl Scouts back to the Capitol for their first major visit post-pandemic. But it should be noted that even when they could not be with us in person, they delivered us cookies. So round of applause for that. Thank you all. What a Georgia success story and historical, amazing fact it is that the Girl Scouts were founded right here in Georgia in 1912 in Savannah by Juliette Gordon Lowe, and it has grown to be an international organization developing character and leadership skills in girls across the globe. The Girl Scouts teaches girls to develop a strong sense of self, connect to their communities locally and globally, and be empowered to make a difference in the world. There are leadership opportunities abounding, including within STEM, the outdoors, and entrepreneurship. There are 75,000 Girl Scout members in the state of Georgia. I'm so honored to have part of the leadership team of Girl Scouts Greater Atlanta, as well as some Girl Scouts with me up here at the rostrum. But before I announce them and turn it over to them to say a few words, I really would like all of our Girl Scouts and chaperones that are in the gallery to stand and please be recognized for coming down here today. Look at this crowd. We have over 300 Girl Scouts down here today watching the leadership of this state in action, and perhaps one of you, or more than one of you, will be future senators. I certainly expect it. I'm thrilled to have at the rostrum two of our Girl Scouts, Ariella Ianzazan and Sheridan Miller, as well as leadership of Girl Scouts of Greater Atlanta. Amy Dosick, who's been CEO for a number of years now, and actually she and I worked together, it wasn't that long ago, right, Amy, at a law firm. So we're both sort of like recovering full-time lawyers, having done some career transitions here. Liz Loretti and Haley Whitmore. So I'm going to ask Amy to come up and say a few words, and then I think we get the treat of hearing from some of our young female leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parent, and it's wonderful to be with you today. When people think about Girl Scouts, they think of what I like to call our 3 C's: cookies, camps, and crafts. So I hope you're enjoying those cookies on your desks. But what I want you to know about cookies is that the Girl Scout Cookie Program is the largest entrepreneurship program for girls in the world. And so when you see women entrepreneurs, 50% of them got their start selling Girl Scout cookies. Great news, the cookies land in town for the rest of our non-Senate peers on Saturday. And so as you see cookie booths at your local Walmart and Kroger, I encourage you to continue to support our Girl Scout entrepreneurs, because if there's one thing I can leave you with today, it's that the long-term effect of Girl Scouting is 3 other C's. And that is that Girl Scouting prepares girls for success in college, career, and community life better than any other organization on the planet. And so when you look at the 50% of female entrepreneurs, 80% of female tech executives, 90% of female astronauts, 76% of the current female members of Congress, the one common denominator is all of them got their leadership start in Girl Scouts. And so I want to introduce Girl Scout Ariel, who's going to tell you a little bit about her experience in the program. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariella Ianzazan. I've been a Girl Scout since kindergarten, and I'm currently a junior at Peachtree Ridge High School in Suwanee, Georgia. Girl Scouts has given me several leadership valuable opportunities and prepared me to excel in countless environments. I especially enjoy Girl Scouts Day at the Capitol because it lets me see things I learned about in school on a first-hand experience. Girl Scouts truly prepares us to be a girl, a go-getter, innovator, risk-taker, and leader. Thank you so much for having us today, and enjoy your cookies.
Are there any unanimous consents? Would any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Senator from the 12th.
Good morning, colleagues. I rise to welcome a group of individuals from Albany, Georgia. It is the youth group from my church. These are amazing young people. Some of them have already been introduced to you. They are paging. My pastor and his wife, Reverend Theodis Drake, is the leader. My church is 156 years old and still thriving extremely well. I am so grateful to have them drive 3.5 hours, sit in traffic for 3.5 more hours just to come to see us today at the Capitol. They are having an amazing time, and thank you for welcoming them, and we would love to have you back anytime, any day. But to that youth group that got up very early this morning, welcome to your state capitol. Thank you so very much.
Senator from the 32nd, you wish to rise on a point of personal privilege?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to point out to all of the senators that are in the chamber right now that today is Skin Cancer Awareness Day. The dermatologists are downstairs in room 230. And for those of you who either have very fair skin like me or people who don't have a lot of hair like some of y'all, you may want to stop by room 230 and pick up your sunscreen and get your skin cancer screening today. They'll be down there until 1:30. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Would any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair hears none. You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Senator from the 51st, would you like to point of personal privilege?
Excuse.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 8th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 8th is excused. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? It is now time to consider the confirmation of appointments of Mr. Warren Selby and Mr. Dax Eric Lopez of the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Secretary will read the report of the committee.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Assignments has had the following under consideration and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that the Lieutenant Governor's appointment of Mr. Warren Selby to the Judicial Qualifications Commission be confirmed, that the Supreme Court of Georgia's appointment of Mr. Dax Eric Lopez to the Judicial Qualifications Commission be confirmed. Respectfully submitted, the Honorable Burt Jones, Chairman. Mr. President, that completes the order.
I recognize the senator from the 51st, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to allow for confirmation of the appointments of Mr. Warren Selby and Mr. Dax Eric Lopez to the Judicial Qualifications Commission be confirmed by one roll call vote.
Thank you, Senator. Is there objection to the names of the appointments that are dispensed? If there is no objection, Secretary will unlock the machines. On the confirmation of the JQC appointments, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 0. Therefore, they are confirmed. Third reading and considerations of general bills and resolutions. We are now moving on to the rule. We're now moving on to the general calendar, and SB 1. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 1 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act relating to general provisions regarding state government so as to remove the automatic repealer on the prohibition on state and local governments from requiring proof of COVID vaccination for government services, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 1, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding state government so as to remove the automatic repealer on the prohibition on state and local governments from requiring proof of COVID vaccination for government services, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
I recognize the senator from the 27th to speak to the bill.
Hear this a lot from the well, but this is actually true. Senate Bill 1 is a simple bill. Last year, then Chairman Mullis carried a bill that prevented government from withholding services from citizens based on their vaccination status for COVID-19. That bill had a sunset in it that is set to sunset June 30th of 2023. The only thing that this bill does is strikes the sunset. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if not, I'll yield the will.
Senator from the 28th, you wish to rise? You wave. Senator from 36, what purpose do you rise?
For the purpose of asking the author a question. Thank you, Mr. President. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Do you have any idea why this was made a temporary bill before? Didn't it get passed before on the grounds that it was going to be sunsetted?
It did. I think like many things that happen that have sunsets here that we pass, it was a let's see how this works and ensure that it works and ensure there's no unintended consequences. And now that we're through that point, I think that it's time that we move on.
And you think there are no unintended consequences from relieving prohibiting a school system from taking a measure to protect the students and families when there's an infection?
I think there's absolutely no unintended consequence from refusing to educate a child based on their parents and their parents' doctor's choice of whether or not to vaccinate against COVID-19.
And is there any consequence unintended in limiting the powers of the governor and our public health officials to use the science of vaccines to take measures? I mean, making this permanent is really quite a phenomenal step to take.
Can you repeat
your question?
Isn't
it true that making this, that removing this sunset and making this permanent in the law books of Georgia is quite a significant step to take?
I agree. It's a significant step to take to ensure the government does not discriminate against its citizens based on their vaccination status of COVID-19.
And do you totally dismiss the role of public health in addressing the needs to protect the broad population when there's infection abroad in the land? Are you dismissive of those long-established powers of public health officials to take steps necessary to contain infection?
Senator, I don't even think that's a serious question.
I beg your pardon?
I don't think it's a serious question to imply that because I don't believe that government should discriminate against citizens based on COVID-19 vaccination status, that I somehow dismiss broad public health measures. I think I just don't think that is a serious question.
Well, isn't it true that I offered that question in all seriousness? Is that not the case?
I believe that you did.
Thank you.
Senator from 37th.
Does gentleman yield?
I do, thank you.
The lady in there, her question referred to science. Isn't it true, though, that the uncertainty of this led to circumstances, isn't it true, that members of our military were discharged from active duty for not taking the COVID-19 vaccine, and then somehow the science changed such that people are no longer discharged from the military for not taking the vaccine? That the shifting sands of that, doesn't that inform the wisdom that science is not fixed and quite as certain, perhaps, as the lady suggests?
I think the very nature of science, Senator, is that you continue to test science and learn from science and to follow the data. And we have seen numerous examples. I'd be happy to enumerate them. I was hoping to not have to get into the minutia of this today, though. But that speaks to exactly what you say, and that is that we had a period of time where we did not know what we faced with COVID. COVID itself has changed. Let's not forget that scientific fact, that we have various variants of the COVID virus itself that has changed and mutated and become less deadly over time. So not only is science the constant testing of theses and hypotheses, but viruses and virology tells us that viruses themselves mutate and change over time as well. So I would say that on multiple fronts we have, as you referred to it, shifting sand, but I would say it's the very nature and the very foundation of the scientific method is that you don't just get locked into rigid positions, but you continue to be open to data if and as it evolves.
Thank you, sir.
Senator from the 1st, you wish to ask a question?
Does Senator yield?
I do.
You know, you pretty much answered the question I was about to say is that the science certainly has evolved. The disease certainly has evolved. We're now vaccinating for what appears to be, and a lot of this in the chamber will certainly empathize with this, in that we are now getting a bad cold relating to what COVID-19 is. And what was the COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021 is different than the COVID-19 in the late 2022 and in 2023. So in essence, we are vaccinating against a cold. Now personally, if we could vaccinate against every cold, I would be happy to take it, because I hate getting a cold like most of us do. But should it be mandatory, and should that time be removed? Isn't that what we're really doing here?
Thank you, Senator, for that question, and you bring up the great point. And I was not trying to be rude to the Senator earlier, but I think that this conversation can very easily devolve into something that it's not. And what this conversation is not, do you support public health? Do you think that COVID is real? Do you think that people died? I think that all of that, we all would say that we believe that. The fundamental question that this bill addresses, Senator, is whether or not government should deny services to its citizens based on their COVID-19 vaccination status. And I think that what we have seen is we have seen federalism play out across this country after the Supreme Court got involved and actually allowed federalism to play out after the federal overreach that we saw. We have seen various states try different things, and we have seen Georgia emerge in a pretty strong position due to Governor Kemp and this legislature and the efforts that we took to balance lives and livelihoods and to balance the ability for patients to make decisions with their doctors as we navigated this pandemic. Mr. President, happy to answer any other questions, or if there are none, I will yield the will.
Senator, you have one last question. Senator from the 42nd, you wish to rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield?
I will.
Senator, I think I just heard you say that we should follow science and not lock ourselves into positions. Is that correct?
I did.
Rigid positions.
I did.
It seems to me, wouldn't you agree, that by having this bill, we actually are locking ourselves into a rigid position and not allowing governments and agencies to actually change with science and circumstances? Wouldn't you agree?
I do not agree, Senator. You have the ability, just as any other legislator does in this chamber, to come forward should the circumstances change and pass a bill that would require government or allow government to discriminate against its citizens and deny services based on a vaccination status. I believe that that would be a dramatic position to take, and we certainly would want to do that if we were to ever do that with a virus that has a fatality rate of greater than 0.1%, which is what COVID currently has.
So it is your position that passing a statutory law and removing any sunset that directs agencies and local governments into a position is not actually taking a rigid position, am I correct?
Once again, I do not believe this bill is taking a rigid position. I believe that this bill is following the data that we have seen come forth since this bill was passed. Thank goodness the instincts of the people that voted for this bill were correct, and we did not allow government to discriminate against citizens over the last year. And I think that when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccination, as COVID becomes less and less of a public health threat, and as COVID becomes less and less of a risk to our citizens, just to pull quotes from a couple different doctors, Dr. Monica Gandhi from University of California, San Francisco says, quote, "COVID looks like the flu," referencing the current variants that we're dealing with right now. The CDC has given us data that show that death rates dropped significantly from Delta to Omicron. Obviously, we're far past Omicron today. Dr. Ashish Jha, which is the White House COVID response coordinator, said that death is, quote, "vanishingly rare" and is, quote, "much lower than your risk of trouble with the flu." So in the same way, Senator, I suppose that you could drop a bill if you wanted to allow government to discriminate against citizens based on their vaccination status of the flu. You could drop a bill to undo this bill. But what's before us today is the decision as to whether or not we are going to allow governments beginning in the end of June of this year to discriminate against its citizens.
Senator, will you yield for one more
I
question?
will, sure.
There's some truth to what you just enumerated in the comments. I'm just curious about how it is that you know that it will remain the same, as in the situation will remain static as it relates to COVID going forward. Can you please elaborate on why you're so certain about that?
Yeah, I think that well, I know what virology tells us, and I would thank you for acknowledging some of what I stated. What we know from virology is as viruses evolve, they typically become more contagious but less deadly, which is why the flu has continued to be with us with different variants year after year, and we do not have widespread panic when flu season comes as it relates to maybe the panic that we had with COVID when it was an unknown entity as it entered the country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. President, thank you. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Senator from the 36th, would you wish to rise? Speak to me.
Good morning, colleagues. I rise to oppose Senate Bill 1, which you've just heard introduced and explained by the author. I'm a firm believer in public health, and we have long precedents for having public health authority. This is being imposed to you today as the government taking away the rights of the individual. But what's really happened in this country is that the COVID-19 pandemic and the disease has been politicized in a way that other diseases have not been. We could trace that long and painful history. Probably, I'll predict the future. When we take the vote in a few minutes, you may see a party line vote. Watch the board. That is likely to be the outcome. Again, politicizing a public health issue. COVID-19 didn't just drift away to becoming something that makes you pretty sick or have a bad cold and most people don't die. It came because we instituted a massive public effort led by public health officials to vaccinate the population. But yet we were faced with a looming resistance to vaccination. We know that there's been a movement building in America to demonize vaccinations and to do it in the name of individual rights. There's something that accompanies the question of individual rights, and that's responsibility and the need that has come up more than one time in the history of this nation to take public health measures to protect the general population from a dread disease. That's what, and so to think that we now are in a different posture with the COVID spread because people aren't dying, except that people are dying at a much lower rate. Newsflash, that's because we instituted, we developed at record time a vaccine, and we spread it through the country. We had to fight constantly against the drumbeat of the anti-vax folks, okay? That's a reality in this nation, that there is a movement to oppose vaccines. And that is a movement that directly challenges public health history and the need to protect the population. That's the balance, the rights of the individual and the needs of the health of the total population. And the pediatricians who oppose this bill, here's their quote: "A permanent ban sets a dangerous precedent which may lead to erosion of the current vaccine requirements for school attendance for other diseases." You know, when you enter your children in a public school, you have to come up with a vaccination record, don't you? We've all historically viewed that as very normal. Of course, I'm going to have my kid get the vaccines that they need to protect themselves and that they have to go to school. I remember very well getting my measles shot in the school gymnasium as a very young person, and it was treated as normal. But an anti-vax movement cropped up, and that's where you're seeing this bill come from. That's where you're seeing this bill come from. And first it was, let's just make it sunset. Don't worry, this isn't going to be forever. Let's just make it sunset. Well, that got the camel's nose under the tent of the anti-vaxxers, okay? You know that, we all know that old saying. The camel got the nose under the tent, and the next thing you know, the whole tent's being torn down because that camel came on inside. That's what's happening right here with this bill. That's why the pediatricians oppose it. Vaccines are widely acknowledged as perhaps the greatest achievement in recent medical history, and strong vaccine requirements for schools are enacted in every one of the 50 states and have played a major role in almost eliminating many vaccine preventable diseases. Yeah, right now, not as many people are dying from the flu. Why? Because we have a campaign to get vaccine out there and protect people from the flu. So when you see minimizing an infection, because why it's getting less and less deadly, it's because of the vaccine and because of the public health measures. So I would urge you to vote for protecting the public. I would urge you to vote for supporting public health measures. I would make this is a public health issue instead of a political issue, and this bill fundamentally is about whittling away at public health powers. If you want to extend it for one more year, yeah, do that. But what about local control? Oh, where did we go on that issue? Anybody here believe in local control? Until you can't control it, right? So my school board can't decide to take a measure, or my grandchildren's daycare center can't decide to take a measure. You're interfering with local control of local political subdivisions, of local school boards, et cetera, with this type of bill. And you're fundamentally signing on to the anti-vaccination movement because, folks, when people hear that we're minimizing this and we're putting in a permanent ban on the public health powers, they say, well, I guess it's really not that big a thing. Yeah, I'm going to skip those vaccination schedules at my kids' school this year. That's the road you're going down. I would urge you to stand up for public health, stand up for the view of the pediatricians and the physicians organizations that are against this legislation. I just don't dismiss that casually when the pediatricians and the physicians take a position on this bill. I would urge you to do what I'm going to do, and that's listen to their advice and vote against this. If I have no questions, I will yield the well.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator from the 55th, would you like to speak on behalf?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I think at minimum, we should do our due diligence. I think that we should take every precaution to protect the people of this state. Not Democrats, not just Republicans, but all people of this state. The author of the bill said that Dr. Shaw from Good Morning America said that COVID feels like the flu. It may feel like the flu, or it looks like the flu, but it doesn't exactly feel like the flu. And how do I know that? Because I had COVID. COVID feels like heck. And that is not really what I wanted to say. But it feels awful. When I had it, I had 3 days of just being sick. Sick, sick, sick. It felt awful. But I just want to remind us of a few things. And I have a letter from the American Academy of Pediatrics that encourage me, because I sit on the Health Committee, to vote no against this bill. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing. And this letter was written to Senator from the 1st and the members of the committee, other members of the committee. And it says, we write today with concerns about Senate Bill 1, which would make permanent prohibitions on school COVID vaccine requirements and also school masking requirements, although that was not addressed in the bill. The author stated that he would bring that later. While the COVID pandemic has stabilized and seems to be waning thanks to the vaccine and other efforts, there is no guarantee that we won't see a resurgence of it again, or even a more virulent strain of the virus. In fact, a recent study published in the Journal of American Medical Association noted that COVID-19 was the 8th leading cause of fatality to children 0 to 19 last year. Permanently prohibiting schools from requiring vaccinations could severely hinder our ability to combat the pandemic. As important, a permanent ban sets a dangerous precedent, which may lead to erosion of the current vaccine requirements for school attendance for other diseases, as the senator from the 36th stated. Vaccines are widely acknowledged as perhaps the greatest achievement in recent medical history, and strong vaccine requirements for schools enacted in every one of the 50 states have played a major role in almost eliminating many vaccine-preventable diseases. Now, before I got COVID, because I'm asthmatic, my family came close to all but putting a net over my house to keep me home so that I would not contract COVID. But I got the vaccines and all the other shots that went with it, the boosters, all but one. And I was in preparation of doing that, but I got COVID before I got a chance to get it. Now I've got to wait. I think I've made it to the time when I can go and get the booster now. We are just too concerned about the looks of things rather than being concerned about what it does. It has left me with this little dryness in my throat that makes me clear my throat all the time. So if that's all I have, I'm glad about that, because some people have problems that will linger with them for the rest of their lives. And so we need to, as I stated up front, do our due diligence, do every single thing that we can to protect the citizens of this state. We have vaccines for other life-altering and threatening diseases. And because people have refused to heed them, we are seeing increases in polio cases. For instance, a disease which had been nearly eradicated in the United States. The danger lies in the precedents this bill sets. The Georgia chapters of both the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American College of Physicians are opposing this measure, saying that it will hurt Georgia's ability to fight continuing COVID-19 infections. It encourages the erosion of other existing vaccine requirements, particularly for public school and college students. And it hurt Georgians' ability to fight future pandemics. We must not forget the harm COVID-19 has rendered in our communities. More than 1.1 million people in the country have died from COVID-19 since 2020. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, including about 3,700 people last week, about 42,000 people in Georgia have died from the virus. We should not politicize this. This is real serious business. COVID-19 is no joke. We should do our due diligence, and we should do everything that we can to protect all of the people of the state. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator has yielded the well. Senator from the 30th.
I do anticipate this is probably going to be a party line vote, because last year when we did this and we put in the sunset like some of y'all were asking for already, it was a party line vote. You would think that we are banning people to have the opportunity to have a vaccination. Listening to your stories here. That is not what he's doing. That's not what this bill is. This bill, you would think of everything that we've talked about in here, that the fate of the free world is going down because we're striking one line in existing legislation. One line. So your due diligence that we're talking about, the due diligence was putting a sunset in it last year to make sure that we weren't overstepping. That was your due diligence, to make sure that what we were proposing, what we were thinking, what the scientists are telling us is real. It was. And now what the senator has done is says, okay, it is real. Let's strike the sunset. So yes, it is going to be a party line vote. I know that as soon as I walked up here, that I have not converted one of my friends in the minority party to come across and vote with. But be honest about what the bill does when you go home. It strikes a sunset and allows you to get any vaccination you want to get based off the information you're deciding for you and your family for your conversations with your doctor. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator's yielded the well. Senator from the 40th, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, it might surprise you, but I grew up in a Republican family. It was a good old-fashioned Midwestern Republican family. The values that I learned from my family were that of local control and being fiscally conservative. I still carry those values. I have 8 cities in my district. I'll be honest. None of them are asking for vaccine passports right now. In fact, they never have. But what this bill does is it says that someday, when they want to, they won't be able to. Now, I have this strange habit when I can't get to sleep at night. I take my Google Chromebook and I start Googling Omicron variants, okay? I've done this like most nights during the week for like 3 years. This virus is still mutating, okay? And the senator said, we're past Omicron. No, all our virus mutations at this point are still Omicron, okay? There's a little mutation out there right now, 1.6% of the cases. I know this because I couldn't sleep last night. It's CH.1.1. It has a Delta mutation in it. Okay, we don't know whether this is going to bring Delta back, but and how it's going to affect people in terms of the illness. But this virus can really still go anyway. Also, we're making developments in terms of better and better vaccines every day. Sometimes I think that we start thinking we're God in this chamber. We are not. In fact, we are very small. We don't know what's around the corner. When I vote on this bill, I'm going to channel my good old-fashioned Republican values. I'm going to vote no for local control. Will you? Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to asking of the previous question? Upon Senate rules, Senator from the 27th, would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'll keep this brief. Thank you for the robust debate around this topic. I think that we, to some extent, drifted off the path of what this bill actually does, and we began to pontificate on the broader questions of public health, the polio vaccine, anti-vaccine, the painful history of politicized public health. I did want to, though, if I could, Mr. President, just take a minute and talk about that painful history of politicized public health and the undermining of the anti-vaxxers and all that was referenced by my friend from the 36th. I, too, lament those who undermined public health, such as President Biden, when he stated, "Who's going to take the shot? Are you going to be the first one to say, 'Sign me up'?" Vice President Harris undermined public health when she called the development of the vaccine process untrustworthy. Now, she was only a congresswoman. She's not the president or the vice president, but Ilhan Omar said, quote, "We can't trust the president and take his word and take a vaccine that might cause harm to us." Governor Cuomo, who got just about everything wrong with COVID, stated that Americans, quote, "should be skeptical." I think I was in this chamber every day during that time that we had session when these politicians were saying that. And I don't remember either the senator from the 36th or any member of the minority party talking then about the anti-vaxxers and how they were undermining public health. So we drift once again into this world of what if, and what if we had a sunset? And as my friend the senator from the 30th pointed out, the idea that let's just put another year on it. I can almost promise you that if my bill had been just to put another year on the sunset, that it would be a party line vote again. How do I know that? Because last year when we voted on this bill, it was a party line vote. Unfortunately, we have indeed gotten somewhat locked into tribalism. And even though Newsweek ran an article just a couple weeks ago and talked about how we got many things with COVID wrong, and even though New York City yesterday went so far as to repeal their vaccine passport mandates, and more governments are recognizing that we did not have everything right in this process, rather than reverting to the scientific method and testing hypotheses and theories and learning, we have decided to come and just lock into our positions. We do know, of course, that Florida and New York had diametrically opposed policies during the COVID vaccination pandemic, and when we look at cases per 100,000, Florida had 347, New York had 366. When we look at fatality rates, Florida was at 1.2%, New York was at 1.4%. I didn't want to get into the debate over government's response to COVID today. All that I wanted to do was say we got it pretty right in Georgia. And I wanted us to be able to celebrate Georgia's victory and all that we've learned since we passed this bill and a number of others, and just eliminate the sunset. But I figured I would indulge us with the rabbit trail that we went down by stating those things. But what you didn't hear today is you didn't hear an argument for the inverse of this bill. What this bill says is that no agency shall require proof of COVID-19 vaccination of any person as a condition of providing any service or access to any facility, issuing of any license, permit, or other type of authorization, or performing any duty of such agency. So ultimately, by voting no for this, you are not voting for, quote, public health. You are voting to allow government to deny a license to someone because they don't have the COVID-19 vaccine. You are voting to allow government to deny a permit to someone because they do not have the COVID-19 vaccine. You are allowing government to prohibit citizens from, quote, performing any duty of such agency because they don't have COVID-19 vaccine. The word radical was thrown out, and I would say that, my friends, would be the radical position. I ask you for your favorable support of this bill, and I yield the well.
You do have a couple questions, Senator, but you yield well? All right, here's fine. It's fine. Senator from the 35th, would you like? Okay. He yielded the well. Senator has yielded the well, so. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from 36, what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that we would hope that we would all support reproductive freedom for women in the spirit of not having government make medical decisions for individuals?
Senator is passionate about what she speaks. Senator from 28th, what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that this bill has nothing to do with the life of another?
The senator is entitled to his opinion. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 31, the nays are 21. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Moving on the calendar here. Next we have Senate Bill 36. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 36 by Senator Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 16613 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to penalties for violating Code Section 16609 through 16612, so as to increase the penalty provisions relating to pimping and pandering to provide for a definition. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th. The Senate Committee on Public Safety offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 36, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 16613 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to penalties for violating Code Section 16609 through 16612 so as to increase the penalty provisions relating to pimping and pandering to provide for a definition. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Recognize the senator from the 29th. Speak to the bill.
Colleagues, this legislation, and I'm reading from LC 393676, as in Sierra, should sound extremely familiar to everyone here. We voted this legislation out last session. We voted it out of judiciary almost unanimously last session and voted it off this floor. And so with as much success as we had getting this out last year, I'll remind you of the individuals that this legislation is attempting to protect. If I ask most people in this building to tell me about a movie that depicted a sex worker, I'm sad to say that the vast majority would probably pick the movie Pretty Woman, where the main character was picked up off the street by an individual driving an expensive car. They spent an evening together. They had a bubble bath. They had an emotional connection, and they became friends, and then eventually they fell in love with each other. He took her back, dropped her off where he picked her up, realized he couldn't do without her. She realized she couldn't do without him, and they connected, and the credits rolled, and we were all just feeling elated because it was a very nice movie. But the reality of it is Pretty Woman is a Walt Disney it's a production of Walt Disney, and it came from a script called $1,000. And if you read the script to $1,000, and I'd be happy to send it to anybody in here, in reality what happens is you have a well-off gentleman driving down the road in an expensive car and decides he wants to purchase sex from someone. And the person he stops to purchase it from is a lady who had just bought crack cocaine from her crack dealer. And she went out there and he picked her up. They had a nice weekend together. He bought her some nice clothes and everything. And at the end of it, he drove her back to where he picked her up. And when she realized he was about to drop her off where he had picked her up, she got angry. Started kicking in the vehicle, started punching the John. He stopped, went around to the passenger side of the car, drug her out, dropped her on the street, dropped the bag of clothes he had purchased for her, and took out $1,000 and threw it down next to her. And as the screenplay ends, as the script ends, the $1,000 are blowing in the wind, and she's sitting on the sidewalk crying. And that's how it ends. And I'd love to tell you that's reality, but it's not reality, because in reality, nobody is paying $1,000 to the average person being exploited for sex. Nobody's purchasing them clothes, and nobody is spending the weekend with them. What they are doing is they are going out and they are renting another human being for the sole sexual pleasure that they get out of that human being. And they are paying that human being somewhere between $45 to $90. And after their 30 to 45 minute tryst, they're walking away from that human being, putting them back out on the street, because that human being in 80% of the cases has an employer, and that employer is called a pimp. And he or she will come around occasionally, pick up the money he's made, and take them back. And when that employee gets through working the required number of hours a day, whether it's 15 or 16, their employer will peel off a certain percentage, usually it's around 20%, and will pay that to them, so they'll have enough rent money to either go to whatever house they live in, or in my jurisdiction, whatever motel room they live in that they rent by the month. That's the reality of someone selling other human beings when it comes to sex workers. And as with the previous legislation, I put a lot of faith into the individuals that stand up here and talk about the healthcare system and vaccines and all of this other kind of stuff. My dear friend from the first, anytime I have a healthcare question, I go to him and ask, or I go to my friend from the 32nd and I ask, and I get the expert opinion. But when it comes to this subject, I understand this subject because weekend after weekend after weekend, working in the jurisdiction that I policed in, I drove carloads of sex workers to the Muskogee County Jail because they were exploited. I drove pimps to the Muskogee County Jail because they were exploiting. And I drove the panderers to the Muskogee County Jail because they were soliciting women and young girls for sex in trade of money. And when I dropped them off at the jail, if I went back 4 days later for court, the sex workers were always there in jail wearing the jail uniform standing in court. But amazingly, the pimps and the panderers, they had made bond and had gone home. They had posted the $250 required, or in some cases the $500 required, and they had gone home, and they didn't show up for court. They had it went over to state court, and they had their attorneys go in and work out whatever they had, and they ended up with a misdemeanor on their record, if that. So this legislation is very clear. What it does is it tells the supplier and that person who feeds off of that supply that we're not going to stand around and allow them to shop and to sell human flesh anymore. Everybody knows my history. I grew up in a house, nothing but women. My mother, my sisters, my aunts, my cousins. And one thing I learned early on, and it's not because my mother grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and demanded it, but I learned to respect the power of the female. I learned to respect the soul of a female. I learned to understand that if I were going to be anything in this world, worth anything, I realized early on it was because of my mother and my Aunt Nell and my sisters. And so someone out there selling flesh, getting off with a misdemeanor charge, and being able to go back to work without their wife or children knowing about it, or the person out there living in the shadows in my district, in the district of my friend from the 15th, who are out there focusing on recruiting poor females, people down on their luck, people addicted to prescription medication, people addicted to heroin and everything else, and telling them their only hope was to go out there and sell themselves so that they could be worth something or to make money, is unacceptable. So what this legislation does, simply, it says if you want to go out and buy sex and risk getting caught by the people that I work with, then you rock on. But if we get you, you're going to jail. And if you post bond, you're going to go to court. And if you go to court, you, the prosecuting attorney, and your attorney are going to have to deal with you facing a felony charge. That goes for the pimp and it goes for the panderer. Again, this legislation passed out of judiciary last session overwhelmingly. Not a party vote. It was bipartisan. It came to this chamber and passed out almost unanimously in a bipartisan fashion. And so I ask you again today to show the compassion for the souls that are out there being sold and vote yes for this legislation. And Mr. President, I will be happy to answer any questions.
You do have some questions, Senator. Senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
Senator, thank you for that presentation. I'm trying to understand for myself how big of a problem this particular issue is. Do you have any statistics, any data related to how large of a problem this is in our great state?
Yes, sir, I think so. We've been giving out those statistics, especially since the Grace Commission was put together by First Lady Marty Kemp, to show that, especially during certain events, the city of Atlanta, Georgia is the #1 sex trafficking location in the United States. And the reason it is because we have a target-rich environment of individuals that can be recruited into this because of other issues related to poverty and drug addiction and things like that. So yes, sir, we've been hearing the prevalence of this for many years.
Senator Yield?
I do.
Aside from any conventions, what are the numbers?
We'll have to suspend. There's a fire alarm going off, so
what'd you do?
Suspend for the moment.